afternoon, good evening. As an international student, you will need a visa to study in the UK, and there are a few different types of visas available from the UK government, but the type you're normally going to need is a UKVI student route visa. So this session is all about applying for a UK student route and eventually graduate immigration route visa. In collaboration with the CP community, the University of Portsmouth's International Student Advice Manager, Alana Holland, is going to talk to us about applying for a student route visa from outside the UK, and then the graduate immigration route visa. So this webinar aims to give you essential guidance to help you prepare for your student route visa application. We'll be looking at how, where and when to apply, what supporting documents you need, and the money needed, the evidence of your funds. So I'm going to hand you over now to my colleague Alana Holland at the University of Portsmouth.
Good evening, everyone. What I'm going to do now is share my screen and turn my video off so we can go through the information. One thing to remember is that this information is correct at this point, and the information may change as we go along in the months and years ahead. So I'll just stop my video and start presenting just in one moment.
Just to add, if there are any questions whilst Alana is presenting, you're very welcome to drop these into the Q&A and we can address these at the end. You need to unmute.
Sorry, yeah. If you can wait until the end, then that would be great, because a lot of the questions you have will probably come up as we're going along. Okay. So my name is Alana Holland. As Jenny said, I'm the International Student Advice Manager of the Student Advice team at the University of Portsmouth. And you will find that all universities in the UK have a similar setup. They might be called something different and they might be based in different parts of the university. But when you're looking to come to the UK to study, one of the things you should do as part of your sort of preparation is contact the department at the university you're wanting to go to, and if that's us, brilliant, and we look forward to being in contact with you. But get in touch with the international student advisors. They're there to give you immigration and visa advice, and they're the only part of the university that is allowed to do that. So no one else in the university will be able to give you advice about visas. So today we're going to talk about the documents that you need, when you need to apply for your student route visa, what you do next, and the graduate immigration route. So the documents that you need will be your CAS, which is Confirmation of Acceptance for Studies, a bank statement or official financial sponsor letter, academic qualifications listed on your CAS. This is usually certificates and transcripts, your valid passport. Any documents that are not in English must be accompanied by an official translation into English, a valid ATAS certificate, if that's required by your course, and a valid TB test certificate if you are applying in a country where it is required. So, bank statements. You need to show that you've got enough money. This is called finance usually. And this money is to cover your living costs and any unpaid tuition fees. So the tuition fees that you pay will be shown on your CAS. So outside London, the living cost is £9,207, and inside London, it's £12,006. These amounts do change from time to time, so that's the current amount as it stands right now. The total amount that you need must be held in the bank account for 28 consecutive days before you apply. Now, applying means that it's the day that you pay your application fee and submit the application, not the day that you attend the visa application centre, but the day that you pay and submit that application. And the bank statement must be no older than 1 month old on the day that you make your visa application. This means that the last transaction on your bank statement must not be older than 1 month old. The Home Office look at the last transaction on your statement and not the date that the statement is printed. So the bank statement can only be in your name or your parent or guardian's name. And if it's your parent or legal guardian's bank account, you need to have your birth certificate and a letter from them confirming that you have access to the funds. The money must be in a personal account and the funds must be available at any time. And this is just a reminder that it can be a personal account, so it can be a savings account or it can be a current account, but the funds must be available at any time. And if it's not clear, you'll need to have something from your bank to make that clear. One thing also to mention before we go on to whether you're sponsored or not is that if you have a legal guardian, that would have to be somebody that you have a court-appointed document saying that they're your legal guardian. So UKVI will not accept affidavits, for example, regarding relationship. So they're really very strict on who can provide your financial support. When we talk about sponsored students, we're talking about those of you that would be sponsored by a national government or by an international company, or you might be fortunate enough to qualify for one of the UK sponsorship or scholarships that are available through things like the British Council, such as Chevening, for example. The sponsor letter must be up to date, it must be stamped and signed by your sponsor, and it must clearly state what is covered by your sponsor. So for example, it must say whether it covers living costs or living costs and tuition fees, or just tuition fees. But it's really important that it meets those requirements. If it's not a national government, or it's not an international company or the UK government, then other types of sponsorship will not be accepted. The Home Office are very, very strict on this, and they will check. So your CAS statement, you have to have this as part of your visa application, in addition to that finance proof that you have to have. So the CAS will only be issued to you once you've met all the conditions of your offer. And this may also include a deposit in addition to academic conditions. So in order for your CAS to be issued, you'll need to make sure that you have met and submitted evidence of all the academic conditions on your offer. And this could be a personal statement, your final transcripts or certificates, ATAS certificates or references, for example. And if your course requires an ATAS certificate, you will need to ensure that you apply for this in good time, as it can take 30 or more working days to issue. And in the summer, it's a particularly busy period for issuing ATAS certificates. So do bear that in mind with your timing. And unfortunately, there isn't a way to expedite ATAS certificates being issued. You'll also need to pay fees as part of that application. And that will be the immigration health surcharge. And this is a compulsory part of the visa application. It's currently £470 per year, or £235 for 6 months. So for example, if you're studying a 3-year course, you'll need to pay £1,645 for the IHS to cover 3 years of study, plus the additional 4 months at the end of your visa. So if you're on a 12-month master's course, then you would be paying £705. In terms of the visa application fees, they are cheaper back in Nigeria than if you're applying in the UK. So the standard service, which is currently 15 working days, has an application fee of £348. Priority service, which is 5 working days, is an additional £212. And super priority is an additional £956. You may also find that there's an additional £55 charge in some of the centres. Do also bear in mind that the IHS fee could go up, as could the visa application fee. With the visa application fee, we tend to get notification in February or March that it will go up in the April of that year. So far, we haven't had any information about price increases, but but do bear in mind that that is possible. Again, with the immigration health surcharge, that could go up. That won't necessarily happen in the spring. That might happen at another time of year. So just bear that in mind, that these costs can fluctuate. And when do you need to apply? So you need to apply when you've got your CAS issued to you and you have all the required supporting documents. So that means that you've got your valid passports, your degree certificates or transcripts as written on your CAS, the evidence of your finance, and the supporting documents if your parents are providing you with that financial support. You can apply up to 6 months before your course starts. So you can't apply any earlier than 6 months before. I would have said on average, most people tend to apply around about 3 or 4 months before their course starts. But do remember that it's the peak period in the summer. So from June to October, processing might take longer for visa applications. So the time frame that I gave you earlier on, that's the time frame that UKVI aim to work to. And that's for a straightforward application. For example, if you've had your visa refused before, then your application would be likely to take longer. And in most cases, using the priority or super priority services, if you've previously had a visa refusal, is probably not going to be worth it, because the application is likely to take a lot longer. How long will your visa be issued for? Well, your visa will start up to 1 month before the course start date on your CAS. So even if you do make the application 6 months ahead of your course starting, the earliest your visa will start will be 1 month before. So if your course is more than 12 months in duration, you will be issued a visa for your course end date, plus an additional 4 months at the end. For courses that are more than 6 months and less than 12 months, your visa will be issued to you for your course end date, plus an additional 2 months. Do remember that when the visa is issued to you, you must check it very carefully, because if there are any errors, there is a time limit on reporting those errors. And errors on your visa are fairly likely to be related to the duration of the visa, or potentially on conditions regarding work. So it's really, really important when you get that visa back and you get the documentation confirming the visa has been issued, that you check it really carefully. And then when you arrive in the UK, that you check your BRP card that will be issued to you to make sure that that reflects the correct timings. So I thought I'd also bring up dependents, as some of you may be thinking of bringing your spouse or children with you. So it's only students that are on a full-time course at postgraduate level that is longer than 9 months at a higher education provider with a track record of compliance that can bring dependents. You can also bring dependents if you're government sponsored and your course is longer than 6 months and you're on an undergraduate degree. Your dependents are your spouse or partner and children who are under 18. If you're bringing children to the UK as dependents, both parents must be applying to come to the UK. Your dependents can apply separately for their visa, or they can apply at the same time. And the application is made on separate application forms. So it's up to you really whether you want to apply ahead of time and then your dependents apply after you, or you all apply together. That will obviously depend on your own personal circumstances as to what you choose to do. Children born in the UK do not become British citizens, so that's just something to be aware of. And your dependents will be able to work either full or part-time if you are in receipt of government sponsorship and taking a full-time course that is at least 6 months, or you're taking a full-time postgraduate course of 9 months or longer at a higher education provider with a track record of compliance. So in terms of the documents required, each dependent will also need to demonstrate that they have enough money for living costs, and that can be shown either in your account or in their account. And for outside London, that's £6,120 each. For inside London, that's £7,605 each. And that's regardless of the age of the dependent. That can be a tiny baby or a 16 or 17-year-old dependent or your spouse. So it's the same amount no matter what. You'll also need to provide evidence of relationship. So that would be a marriage certificate and for children, that would be a birth certificate. And obviously they need to have valid in-date passports as well. So working in the UK, you can work for up to 20 hours per week during term time if you're studying a full-time course at degree level or above at a higher education provider with a track record of compliance. You cannot work at all if you are studying a part-time course. And you will be permitted to work full-time during vacation periods. But if you're on a master's course, the summer vacation period is usually when you're working on your dissertation or final project. So this is considered to be term time, not vacation time. You will also be permitted to work full-time after your course has officially finished. And you cannot be self-employed on a student route visa. So you can only work for an employer on this type of visa. So further information and application forms can be found on the .gov.uk website. So they have a section for the student visa and applying. And as I said, there is a separate application form for yourself and for each of your dependents. And there's also really helpful information and advice on the UKISA website about making a student route application outside the UK. So their information is generic information for students coming to the UK. UKISA are the organisation that provide training for international student advisors. So the information on there is really helpful if you aren't sure who to ask in the institution that you're planning to study at. So next, I will talk about the graduate immigration route. And this is a visa for international students who've got a valid student route visa and who successfully complete their degree. The application fee is currently £700, and obviously that is subject to change. And again, usually we'll find out if those kind of fees update in the spring. And you'll need to pay the higher rate of immigration health surcharge for the graduate immigration route. So that's £624 per year. And the visa is 2 years for undergraduate and master's level students and 3 years for PhD students. Applications can only be made in the UK, so do bear that in mind. So what happens with the graduate immigration route is that your university will need to confirm to UKVI that you have successfully completed your course before you can apply for the graduate immigration route. This will usually be after the exam boards have sat and have confirmed that you've been awarded. So that's what successfully completed means. It doesn't just mean finished and that you've got your results. It means that the award has actually been agreed. For this visa, you won't be required to show evidence of finance when you apply. And you can only have this visa once. So for example, if you apply for it after your undergraduate studies and then go on to postgraduate studies, you would not be able to apply for it again. So please bear that in mind. You can switch from the graduate immigration route into the student route if you want to go back to studying after working, or if you find permanent employment, you can switch into the skilled worker route from this visa. The graduate immigration route visa does not allow study though. So if you're wanting to go back to study partway through the graduate immigration route, bear in mind that you will have to switch back to the student route before you can be enrolled. And as I said, if you can only have this visa once. So if you don't use the full period of the visa, you can't then apply for further leave later on if you didn't use the full period. So do obviously bear that in mind. Another thing to point out is that, we don't know and we cannot guarantee that this visa will be available for you once you've finished your studies. We hope that it will be. It's something that UK universities have been asking for a very long time, because the previous post-study work visa finished 10 years ago and we spent 8 years waiting for it to come to fruition. So it has been quite a long time that universities have waited, and we know that it's something it's very important to a lot of you. So that's the end of the presentation. I'll stop sharing now, and we can have a look at some of your questions. Okay, so I'm going to have a look at the questions first in chat, and then I'll go to the ones in Q&A. So I'll just start at the top and see what the questions are. So some universities may ask for proof of bank statements. That's Wanda has asked that. So some universities may look at proof of finances before a CAS is issued. Some universities may ask for a deposit, and each university will ask for a different amount. So do be aware that will differ depending on different universities. The occasion where universities will definitely ask for bank statements will be if you've had a visa refusal on the basis of having the incorrect amount of finance. And to be honest, that is the most common reason for a visa refusal, that you don't have the finances correct. That's either that you don't have enough money, or you don't have the money for the required amount of time. The money's in a business account. The money is in the account of a relative who is not your parent. You know, things like that. Or money that's with a sponsor that UKVI does not consider to be a valid sponsor. So those are reasons why you know, you might get a refusal on the basis of not having the correct finance. But each university will operate slightly differently on whether they expect to see bank statements. But it's good practice to get those bank statements prepared, you know, as soon as you're able to, so that you've got them ready ahead of time to make your visa application. So let's just have a quick look. So again, Wanda, so for someone that starts their postgraduate application now and has submitted all the documents, when is it likely for the school to respond to such an application? If you're talking about the university specifically, it will depend on the course, because some courses may take slightly longer than others. Jenny can probably give you a picture, or Chinello can, about rough timings for how long that would take for the University of Portsmouth, but it will depend on each university and will probably be subject dependent. Chinello, Jenny, do you want to add to that?
Yes, I would. So like Lana said, that will be dependent on the course you're applying for. Usually my advice is always to apply sooner rather than later. So the key thing is, once you have decided that you want to progress, for example, for September intake, now is just a good time to start to put your documents together and submit your application, because some courses actually, the application for certain courses fill up quite fast, and they close those applications quicker than some other courses. For example, we have social work course, which is available once a year in September, and before the post-study work route, which has astronomically increased the number of applications we get, that course used to close by April. So we're seeing it even closing sooner than that. So the key thing is just apply ASAP.
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, a lot of the advice you're going to get from myself, Jenny, Chinello, and Gift will be prepared. Like the Scout Association says, be prepared. Get prepared early, because the graduate immigration route has made the UK an even more attractive destination. And it means that certain courses, particularly those with a vocational element, are very, very much more popular than they ever were. So, you know, you have to make sure that that application is really spot on and that you can stand out with that application. So I can see Ivy's asked a question. So you must be accepted to a school before applying for a visa. Yes, that's right. You have to have a CAS and you have to have all those documents in place to apply for a student route visa. You can't come and study in the UK without that student route visa. There's no way of applying for it in the UK. So you couldn't come over as a tourist, for example, and then switch to student route. That's just not possible. And Ivy's also asked about if your sponsor is a UK citizen. As long as that UK citizen is your parent, or you can have a legal document showing that they are your guardian. And as I said, an affidavit is not enough. Chinelo might be able to confirm a bit more about the legal documents from Nigeria that are accepted for students in terms of guardianship. But if they're not your parent and you haven't got that legal guardianship document, I'm afraid that it wouldn't be accepted. Chinelo, can you add to that? You probably know a lot more than I do.
Yes, you're actually correct. So, because I get that question a lot, and I'm also quick to explain that when we ask for legal documents, we're not asking for a sworn affidavit, because we're not going to use that for anything. We're asking for a proper legal document that is supposed to be as old as you are, saying that you have been taken care of by this particular guardian. So it is not just a document that you would rustle up because you need it to progress with your application. It has to have been something that has been with you for a very long time. So to reiterate what Alana has said, you can only be sponsored by yourself or your parents. And if you say you have a legal document in the UK, they should have the document to back that up. Yes.
Thanks, Chinelo. And it's again, that's a very common reason for refusal, and that I've seen. I've worked with international students for nearly 20 years, and the money is always the big one, but affidavits are usually where a lot of applications fall down. If you are relying on other family members or family friends, for example, to support you, then you've got to have a very frank conversation with them about whether they're happy to give that money to you in advance of time. They might decide that they're happy to pay all your tuition fees up front and then just give you the living costs. But it's having that frank conversation and having it in good time. This is what I mean by being prepared. Don't have the conversation in August when you're due to start in September. Have that conversation now, so that if you've got to have some tricky conversations with family or friends, you can get that out of the way right now. No embarrassment, no worries needed if you do that now. So Adebola has asked about when about dissertation submission and starting work immediately. So you need to have officially finished your course. So your dissertation date is likely to be a few weeks prior to your official course end date. So you need to wait until the official course end date before you can work full time. So until that point, you would be working 20 hours per week. And one thing that I will say is that any employer that asks you to work over those hours on your visa is a bad employer. A, you shouldn't be doing it, and B, they shouldn't be asking you to do it. It risks their ability to employ anybody, and indeed they will face large fines. And for you, that can mean your visa being curtailed or cancelled and you having to leave the UK. So do bear in mind that work is something you need to be very, very careful about.
Can I jump in here at this point and say, I really think you ought to be treating your degree as a full-time job. So you ought to be studying, whether it's timetabled lectures, seminars, lab time, for at least 35 hours a week. So once you've factored in, if you were to work your maximum of 20 hours a week on top, that's a full week. Any more than that, and you're really going to be jeopardizing your end result degree. And, you know, this is a lifelong investment to study overseas, to study in the UK. And if it's the matter of you getting between a pass and a distinction, pass and a credit, because you've missed deadlines, because you've had to work too hard to fulfill your 20 hours to make ends meet, then, you know, that's not what it's about. By all means, get a part-time job, embrace that part-time job, but bear in mind that wherever you study in the UK, you are limited to that 20 hours a week.
And I would also add that, you know, this advice would be the same that we would give to home students. They don't have to worry about the visa ramifications. But one of the things that Jenny's highlighted there is that if you're not concentrating on your course, and for example, if you didn't pass first time, that can then risk your ability to meet the requirements for things like the graduate immigration route visa. Because if you don't complete your course within your current visa, you may not be able to extend your visa for further study. You might be able to, but you might not. And the exam boards that you then go to, if you've got to resit, may not be held within that period of your visa. So your aim, that big investment in money and time and traveling away from friends and family, is that you kind of have to be very serious about it. But as Jenny said, using that part-time job as a kind of a way of earning some money and getting to know people, making friends, getting to know the local area, it's really helpful. But study is your primary focus. So I can see Funsho has asked about bringing dependents now that they've finished studying and still have at least 2 months more before their BRP expires. So I wasn't expecting a question from a current student, but if your visa is still valid, then your dependents can come in, but they would need to come in obviously before your current visa expires. And particularly for the graduate immigration routes, if you're planning to apply for that, your dependents have to be in the UK for them to be dependents on the graduate immigration route. You can't apply for the graduate immigration route and then bring dependents in. That's not possible. So if you want to do that, you need to be incredibly organised. And bear in mind that in some countries there can be delays on visa application processing, particularly I would say at the moment, because the UK government is expecting students who started in January, February time and last September and October to be in the UK by the 6th of April. So you may find that your local visa application centre is incredibly busy. So do bear that in mind. So I can see Hart has asked about the payment plan. So postgraduate and undergraduate students at the University of Portsmouth pay the same payment plan, and that is 2 instalments. So one at the start of the year and one at the start of the second semester. So you pay your deposit, you pay your first instalment of your fees at the point of registration. So this is for the University of Portsmouth. This isn't for other universities. They may well have other rules or regulations. Do make sure that you check that. In order to complete your registration, you do need to make that first payment for the University of Portsmouth. If you don't make that first payment, then you can't complete your registration and you can't access all your course materials and come to lectures and lab sessions and all the important things you need to do. And if you're not registered, the university has to report that to UKVI if you're not registered, and then your visa would be cancelled. So again, like I was talking about preparing, you need to make sure that that money is available in advance. When you've made your visa application, you have sworn to say that the money is available to you, that you're demonstrating with that visa application. So a university can legitimately say, but you said it with your visa application, you had the money to pay your tuition fees. What has happened to that money? Now, we do know, obviously, that things do happen, and we're particularly aware that there are some very, very strong currency controls within Nigeria about money being removed from the country. So we do know that, but that is where you need to plan and think about it. You also need to make sure that that money is in an account where the money can be moved. So again, that might be, you have to have a frank and honest conversation with your parents to say, look, Mum, I need the money now, it needs to be available to be sent over. So it's preparation is key for all of this. Okay, so we've got a question about a student who has a baby. So this is a very specific question, and if you're a student at the University of Portsmouth, I'd be very grateful if you contacted us direct to ask about that. If you're an undergraduate student and you've had a baby, then you wouldn't be able to apply for a dependent visa for them. They're legally allowed to be in the UK without a visa, but they may have limited access to the NHS. So babies under 3 months old can have free of charge access to the NHS. But if you have a baby in the UK and you're a postgraduate student, you need to make sure that you start thinking about that visa application for the baby, before they turn 3 months old, ideally, because I don't know a huge amount about babies, but what I do know is they need a lot of care and they need a lot of inoculations and vaccinations in their first few months, in the first year of their life. So again, that's something to think about, that when you have your baby, make sure that you get the passport sorted out. I understand that the Nigerian High Commission can sometimes take quite a while to get organised with passports in the UK. In my experience, again, over the last 20 years, I'd have said that, you know, you have to be very, very organised with these things, because even outside COVID, the Nigerian High Commission is a very, very busy High Commission in the UK. We have a lot of Nigerian people living in the UK, and we have a large diaspora group in the UK and people visiting Nigeria a lot. It's a very, very busy place. So you need to be organised, and you need to check the waiting times on the website. I could see Gift nodding. I'm sure she's had experience of dealing with the Nigerian High Commission in the UK. It's something that if you have a child in the UK, you need to think about that. In terms of sort of more detailed advice, as I said, if you're a University of Portsmouth student, please contact us. If you're not a University of Portsmouth student, I would suggest that you contact your university that you're currently at to advise. But it's sort of general advice would be that if your spouse isn't in the UK with you at the moment, because you're an undergraduate student, I think you need to take a bit more advice, particularly if you're planning to sort of travel home and then come in. There may be some timing issues around this, so I couldn't give you any detailed advice. It wouldn't be right for me to do that because I don't know your circumstances. So as I say, if you are one of our students, please contact us. If you're not, please contact your international student advice team at your university. So a bit more straightforward question we've got about applying for September intake. Jenny and Chinello, do you want to talk a bit more about that? You've already touched upon, you know, some of our courses filling up, so it'd be great if you could talk a bit more about that.
Okay, so well, as of today, we still have, I'm not sure we have closed application on any of the courses we have for September, so it's still okay for you to apply for September intake. But that's not to say you should now sleep on it. So go ahead and submit your application if you are keen to progress this September. Okay, I think I can pick up the next question. Can I, Lana? Okay, so it says, can a student in Nigeria do degree in nursing instead of going for master's? Okay, so the degree here, I'm not certain whether it's an undergraduate degree or a postgraduate degree. And I'm speaking from the perspective of the staff of the University of Portsmouth. Unfortunately, we do not have, we're unable to accept international students onto our nursing program. So that's dependent on what university. I know that a few universities in the UK are accepting Nigerian students onto their nursing program. But what I do know is that for those universities, they usually have a very short timeline for you to apply. So if you're not for the University of Portsmouth, I think you should just find out if the university you're interested in is still open for nursing at this point. But for the University of Portsmouth, we unfortunately do not have, we're not able to accept international students onto our nursing program.
Could I just jump in at that point and say we are going to hold an information session with Chinello and I for the University of Portsmouth specifically. So we'd be very happy if you joined us when that date is set, and that will be broadcast on the CP community as well.
So the next two questions, I'll answer both of them at the same time. In fact, there might be three questions. We've got Gift, Blessing, Lola, all asking about the graduate route. So the graduate route visa, as I mentioned, you can only start applying for the graduate route visa once your university has confirmed to the Home Office that you've successfully completed. At the University of Portsmouth, that's when you're awarded, and I would imagine that's the same in most other universities. So at the University of Portsmouth, we will send an email to you once we have updated the Home Office to say that you've successfully completed and been awarded. So you can only make your application at that point. If you haven't been awarded, then you risk a visa refusal. So don't make an application until you know that you've been awarded. It's really important. So it's not just about the results, it's about that final award and confirmation of award. And Lola was asking about starting work immediately. So as I said before, once you've officially finished your course, you can work full time. You might find that you're lucky that you've got an employer that wants to take you on more permanently once you've finished. Because you can't work on a permanent contract when you're on a student route visa, what you have to do is ask your employer to employ you temporarily until that graduate route visa has been issued to you. Now, I can confirm that most universities are not going to say to an employer that a student is guaranteed to get a visa. So we couldn't vouch for that. We can say that a student can apply for it, but we could not say to an employer, this student will definitely be granted the visa. So do bear that in mind when you're talking to employers. Some of them may be a bit nervous because, as I said, there's a lot of rules around employing people in the UK. And, you know, if employers get it wrong, they can get fined and it has some very serious consequences. So you may find some are quite cautious about employing international students. Some of the large companies won't be because they're used to an international workforce. Some smaller organizations may be a little bit more nervous, but yes, you can work full time after you've finished your studies, but you can't work on a permanent contract yet. I think I've already answered the question about the dependents. Okay, change of course. I mean, I think if you don't mind, Chinello, I can answer this, but I'm coming from possibly a slightly different angle to Chinello, but I hopefully will cover both things. So it will depend whether there's still spaces on that course and whether you meet the requirements for the course. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if you need to make sure that you really research and know what you're applying for, because you can't change courses under most circumstances once you get to the UK. And once you've made that visa application. So you need to make sure the course is right for you, that you've got the CAS for the right course. And bear in mind that as part of the visa application process, you might actually have to go to a credibility interview where you will be asked about your studies and about why you want to do that course. So bear in mind that you do need to research things carefully. I think Chinello and Jenny can probably, talk about courses that, there are some courses that have some similarities, but I think, it's about doing your research.
To be honest, Lana, I had a student who wanted to change their course, and it's not advisable. I mean, my straightforward answer to you would be, take your time to research on the course you really want to study. And once you put in that application, then, just leave it. Except, of course, the admissions team come back to you in the process of going through your application and say, look, we're unable to take you onto this course. How about you try for this other course? But once you've been made an offer for a course and you've gone ahead to accept the offer, you've fulfilled all the conditions, you've been issued your CAS, the application has progressed this far, it's really not advisable for you to then start to think about changing your course. It's not as straightforward as just working up to staff at the university or someone within the department to say, I want to change my course. It's not that simple. So just be sure of what you want to do from the very beginning. And once you accept onto that course and you go ahead to fulfill the conditions, you're progressing in terms of your application, and you have actually been issued your CAS, then please just progress with the course for the good of everyone. Yes.
I could totally agree with what Alana and Chinello have both said. It's one thing changing your mind while your application for your course is being considered. And, we've seen applicants, for example, for international business and management, switching to international human resource management, which is relatively straightforward. But once you've paid your deposit, once you've completed our student route visa questionnaire and applied for your visa, that's kind of the point of no return. You shouldn't be applying for a visa if you still aren't sure about your course. And, there's so much information out there, whether it's from the university representatives, from the university you're applying to. Chinello is our in-country manager for West Africa. I'm there in Portsmouth, and there to help students in making the right decision. We've got agents that we work with, and so do most other UK universities. So do your research and make sure you apply for the right course right from the beginning. Not to mention, if you do proceed for an undergraduate course and it's the wrong subject for you, you've got your visa, you've enrolled, and I've seen this happen recently enough, it's very difficult for you to switch courses once you're enrolled in the UK. It's more likely you would have to withdraw and reapply for another course the following year.
Yeah, and that means you've got to go back to your home country, you lose some time on your studies. And for undergraduate studies, there is a 5-year cap. So you don't want to go over that cap on studies. So it is, it's really worth doing that research. And I think someone asked about applying for undergraduate courses. Yes, you can apply for September undergraduate courses from now. UK students have been doing it since September, so since last September, so you can keep doing that. So can you study another course after completing the initial course? So with visas for the UK, you need to be always going up a level. So if you completed an undergraduate course, you can then go on to a postgraduate master's and then can go on to a postgraduate research course. It's unlikely that you would be able to study again at the same level, particularly undergraduate, because there is that cap on study, but also at master's level, you would need to justify to the university, so that would be either to us or to another university, why you wanted a course at the same level because of academic progression. So that's the visa terminology about increasing your level of study each time. If you're making an application back in your home country, that is different, but if you're trying to extend in the UK, you always need to be increasing that level of study. And there's the study cap on undergraduate study to contend with. So got a question about graduate immigration route. So if you had an employer that was happy to sponsor you for the skilled worker route, which is what Tier 2 used to, the old Tier 2 visa basically, you don't have to have the graduate immigration route if an employer wants to sponsor you under the skilled worker route. That's great if they do. There is a bit more freedom in the skilled worker route in that you can bring dependents, after you've started the course. So if you got married partway through your work, then you could bring a dependent. And there is, the ability to be able to settle in the UK if you've had the skilled worker route for a specific amount of time. So there's sort of pros and cons. Skilled worker, you are tied to a particular employer. Graduate immigration route, you are independent and you can work where you like. Both have different restrictions, but you can, you could apply for the graduate immigration route visa with a view to looking for that skilled worker sponsorship. But you don't have to take the graduate immigration route visa if you don't want to. But bear in mind that, if you're not planning to study again in the UK, it's not an infinite offer. You pretty much have to apply for it whilst you're on whilst you're on that student route visa. So you must have a valid student route visa for the whole period of your study. You wouldn't be able to have switched into student route partway through your study, for example. You need to have the student route visa for the whole time. Dependents can study in the UK. Dependents have a lot less restrictions on them, so they can work or study in the UK either full or part-time. I think probably Chinello and Jenny probably better placed to talk about scholarships for students.
Yes, we have a number of scholarships at the University of Portsmouth, and we'll cover those in our information session about Portsmouth later on. Once that date is set, you will be communicated that.
Okay, there's a question about, would your age be considered if you're sponsoring yourself? No, the important bit is that you have the money, the required amount of money for the required amount of time. So someone asked about course changes, but I think we've already covered that. And Chinello can give some contact detail in a minute, and obviously the scholarship question that we've covered. And I think this is just something in the Q&A. So if you've forgotten your name in your application, I think you can just contact your institution and ask them to update your record. That should be fine. and then you applied for a 1-year master's, but your visa was refused, and you can continue the course online, finish the course, and then your husband decided to take the student route too by doing his master's, can I and the kids still be eligible for being his dependents? Yes, you can, but bear in mind that anytime you have a visa refusal, you must always refer to that visa refusal. So the Home Office will then make their decision based on why that refusal was given. So obviously, without me knowing why your refusal was given, you would need to make sure that you're very, very clear in your application, and indeed your spouse would need to be clear in their application about, you know, why that visa was refused. So for example, if it was for financial reasons, you would need to make sure that your bank statements were completely spotless, that there was nothing wrong with them at all, that you had the right money, the right amount of time for each one of you. And you would need to always refer to that refusal, because if you don't, then you risk being refused on the basis of deception. So any refusal, you will always have to refer to that continually, every single application you make. Even if you have a successful visa after that, you will still need to do that. And someone's asking about dependent study for a degree course. Yes, they can, but bear in mind that depending on what your circumstances are, they will need to have enough time on that dependent visa to finish that degree course or to switch into the student category. And obviously visa and immigration rules can change. At the moment, switching is allowed from a dependent visa to a student visa in the UK. But, you know, as I said before, rules and regulations on visas can change. So just do bear that in mind. And I think there's some more questions. Chinello and Jenny, do you want to answer the one about masters and what students need for a master's course?
Sure. So generally, for the University of Portsmouth, most UK universities I'm aware of, if you're applying for a master's degree, you would need to have a bachelor's degree or equivalent. So that's what most universities would be looking for. But then there may be situations where you may have done an HND, plus you've got several years work experience, which may be considered, in which case, speaking from a Portsmouth perspective, our admissions team would refer your application to the faculty, and an admissions tutor would review your CV, your HND, is it relevant to your master's? It may be that they would ask you to do a pre-master's, but it will depend, it will be on a case-by-case basis.
I think the rest of the questions aren't visa related, they're more to do with sort of course requirements.
That's right. I've got a quick question, Alana. What happens if a student has applied originally to study either in, let's say, for example, Australia or Canada, where we know that the visa rules are slightly different to the UK? Say they got a refusal, would they still be eligible to apply for a UK visa, or would that be, how would that be considered?
So they can apply, but again, UKVI will also ask you if you've had refusals for other countries. And, you know, to be quite honest, you know, lots of countries share their information. So if you've had a refusal, it will depend on that reason for refusal. But UKVI may look into that with their counterparts in Canada or Australia. So, you know, again, it's all about the reason for refusal. You know, if you had a visa refused because you committed some kind of fraud, it's unlikely that you're going to get a visa issued to you for anywhere, to be quite honest. You know, if you've committed deception, you gave false documents, that would be where there would be an issue. If it was a matter of, you know, you didn't provide the correct financial documents, I know I keep harping on that, but honestly, that is, I would have said about 80% of refusals I see are based on financial documents not being correct, and that is over a 20-year period. So I have a large sample time to look at that. So yeah, refusals for other countries and refusals for the UK obviously can affect, you know, applying for other countries, but you always need to be honest. You always need to say that you've had that refusal, but do bear in mind that in credibility interviews, in your visa application, you will always be asked about that. And that is where, you know, your application may take a little bit longer to be reviewed by UKVI because they may be looking into more information. So I'm sorry, I can't say a definite yes or a definite no. It will be looked at on a case-by-case basis.
I've got a question, and this was, I got this question from a student. So he got a 10-year ban, and this was because, according to him, his agent at the time submitted false documents. I think it was either something to do with his bank statements or something to that effect. So he was issued a 10-year ban, and he served his ban. So the ban expired in 2020, and he's now looking to apply to the UK for master's degree course. So I just wanted to know if he stood a chance of, you know, getting a visa, assuming he's obviously sorry. Well, according to him, I mean, I haven't served that ban for that long. I want to assume he's sorry for whatever it is he's done. But do you think that he says he has a good chance of being issued a visa, assuming he provides all the documents and everything checks out right this time?
I would say it's difficult to say because, again, the Home Office will make a decision and they wouldn't be able to tell us. So we could, even if we asked them and said, you know, what are the students' chances, they would say it's on a case-by-case basis. If he's been stung by an agent before, it might actually be better for him to make an independent application himself without an agent to take away that worry about it happening again. He may also want to write a statement to explain, you know, what happened and address those points in that refusal and the points about the deception. But, you know, the Home Office are probably going to be very, very cautious about somebody who has had that 10-year entry clearance ban. And I think they would probably need to prove what they've been doing in the last 10 years and what their commitment is to, you know, what they've been doing, whether it's work, other study. So it's difficult to say, to be honest. I don't know either way, because it doesn't happen very often. So yeah. I don't know either way how successful or unsuccessful someone would be. But I unfortunately, I think you would possibly err towards the slightly pessimistic side. But, you know, I think it might be that if that student's previously, you know, had that time ban, they may also want to consider getting a specialist lawyer who deals in cases like that, you know, and can put together, you know, documents in a particular way to explain things, but that obviously comes at a cost. But I think in this you know, inquirer's case, I would probably avoid using an agent if that's where the issue came up.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Alana. Chinelo is our West Africa in-country officer, looks after students coming to the University of Portsmouth. Alana is our international advice manager at the University of Portsmouth and looks after students with student visa advice, graduate immigration route advice. And thank you so much to Chidera Gift Peters for hosting us today of the CP community. So Chidera, do you want to say a few words before we wrap up?
Yes, please. Thank you everyone for joining. I really hope that this has been quite insightful, because for me, I know I've learned one or two things. And then also regarding applying to the University of Portsmouth, we're definitely going to have like a session that's going to handle that. So how to apply, when to apply, you know, if the processing is taking long, what to do, all of that. So that will be communicated in the community, both on Instagram, Telegram, and Twitter. So please keep an eye out for that. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining. And thank you so much, Alana. Thank you so much, Chinelo and Jenny. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.